Hey guys, welcome to my little rundown video on how I made my remix of Calvin Harris's Pray to God. It went #1 on the Hypeddit charts. It got featured on Blank. And yeah, it's probably one of the best songs I've made to date. So I hope you enjoyed this rundown and I hope you learned something new. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. Starting with the kick. So we have 2 layers on the kick. So this is what the kick sounds like all together. So yeah, very powerful, punchy kick. It's got 2 layers to it. So there's the top kick, which sounds like this. And I will play you the top kick without the processing just so you can get an idea of what I'm doing to the original sample. So yeah, nothing special. It's a very like 909 sounding kick. And I'm basically cutting out the lows first, and then I'm distorting what's left of it using overdrive and pedal. And then I'm using EQ again to get rid of frequencies that I don't want, because the distortion will add things that you might not want in there, and it will add some more lows. I'm cutting some lows, and then I'm cutting more lows again using the auto filter until we get the sound that we want to get. Moving on to the main kick, this is what it sounds like. Yeah, even on its own, it's a very powerful kick. The top kick just helps to bring it up slightly. It just helps the kick to punch through in the mix. I think I've processed this kick a fair bit, and I've bounced it out into like its own clip. That's why there's no processing here at the bottom. But I've got these 2 channels that I haven't really used, so I'm assuming this is like an early version of the kick that I had. So I'll just play you guys what this sounds like. Yep, so it's there's a lot of low end in there, so I'll quickly take out the processing so you can sort of hear it. So yeah, it's a very flat sounding kick almost. Not very good, to be honest, but yeah, using pedal to distort it, and then cutting some stuff that I don't want, and then saturating it. It makes it sound a bit more techno-y, and it gets it to where we sort of want it to be, which is this. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of low end in there. So I would have definitely either shortened the kick sample, or I would have used another EQ and just lowered the really low frequencies that caused that little low end tail to play through. Yeah, so you had that really nice sound. I'll quickly play the kick and I'll introduce the top kick so you can sort of get an idea of what the top kick is doing. So yeah, in the case of this song, it's a pretty subtle difference, but it does make a difference in my opinion. It just helps make the kick punch through the mix a bit more. Okay, so moving on, I want to go through the sub bass and the rumble as well. What I'm gonna do is, okay, so I'll just quickly play you guys what it sounds like first. So that's the rumble, or like the sub bass, whatever you want to call it. And basically, there's a few ways you can do this. There's like a million tutorials out there on YouTube on how to do this. But what I like to do is I like to add reverb on the main kick drum. So this is just like a rough outline of what I do. So don't like copy this exactly and expect to get the same result, because I do a lot of tweaking and it takes some practice to sort of get it right. But I turn off the chorus, spin, and then I put the quality on high, dry wet all the way up, decay somewhere like around 9, I guess. And then, where am I? Am I in this one or this one? Oh no, I'm on the main kick. So, yeah. And then if I solo out the main kick, this is what it will sound like. So yeah, it just becomes, almost like an atmospheric sort of element. What I would do, I would duplicate that. So I have like a like a separate channel with just like the kick and the reverb on it, and I would freeze the track and flatten it so I get the audio clip. And I would basically pick apart my favorite section of that reverb clip, and I would crop it into like a 1-beat section like this. And then once I have it in audio, I can, sort of adjust the fade in and then the fade out so it's all nice and smooth. But obviously the clip we're going to have, it's going to sound very thin. There's not really going to be a lot of low end to it. So I like to use the amp, drum bass and all that kind of stuff to sort of give it some more beef and add some distortion and make it sound like an actual sub bass. And I'm also using EQ a fair bit to do the same thing, which is to cut out the high frequencies. And you might see me using more than one EQ to do the same thing. That's just because I find that Ableton's EQ8 doesn't really cut all the frequencies out at once. Sometimes you need to duplicate the same EQ and sort of do it again if you want to get everything sort of cut out. But either way, it's still a really good EQ. I think it's a lot better than the stock FL Studio EQ. And that's coming from someone that used FL Studio for like 5 years before switching to Ableton. So yeah, Ableton EQ8 is much better. So that's basically it for the kick and the bass. Moving on, I'll go through the percussion real quick. So I'll play you guys what the percussion sort of sounds like all together. I'll play it with the top kick as well, so you can sort of like follow along in time. So here we go. Yep, so that's the percussion side of things. As you can see, it's very full. It fills up a majority of the high end. And my aim with the percussion is to basically fill up the track as much as possible. So even if I only have the kick, the bass, and the percussion, the track still sounds really full, and it's already got that danceability to it. And anything else that I add on top will just, make the track even better. So first element I have is the basic B-hat, which is literally just like your standard offbeat techno hat. Yeah, nothing special. The trick with this element and any sort of hat element, to be honest, is just get a really good sample that sounds awesome out of the box. And just, I've literally just cut out the lows and boosted the highs, which is, pretty like stock standard stuff. So nothing special at all. It's just a matter of finding good samples. And I mean, you can see the name of my sample that I've used, so you can probably figure out a way to find that same pack. And then I've got the fast hats. I'll play you this one without the effects so you can hear what it initially sounded like. So this is a percussion loop. I may have tweaked it a little bit, but I'm assuming I just dragged and dropped it. So this is what it sounds like without any processing. Yeah, very snappy closed hat pattern there. And then with the percussion, so kickstart for the sidechain so it doesn't clash with the main kick. And then I'm cutting out the lows, and then again I'm cutting out the very harsh high frequencies, just because I don't want it to be too present. Like, I don't want these hats to be very present in the mix. I want it to be sort of pushed back. Moving on, we have the ride cymbal. I'll take off the processing so you can sort of hear what I'm doing here. Take that off. Oops. Yep, so again, I'm using a one-shot sample. I've adjusted the fade out time, and I think I've adjusted the fade in time as well, so it doesn't have a really strong attack and it's not too snappy. And then I'm using auto filter to take out the low frequencies, and then I'm using reverb to give it a bit more space, make it a bit wider, and push it further back in the mixdown. I'll play you what it sounds like for now. I'll include the sidechain as well. And then I'll turn on the EQs so you can see what the EQs are doing as well. Yeah, so the EQs and the reverb and stuff, it just helps to tame the sound and push it back in the mix without making the sound too weak. You know, you can still hear it. It's just pushed further back. Alright, so next we have this element called the synth perk. So it sounds like this. So yeah, it's very minimal techno sounding. A lot of old school minimal techno had this sort of rolling, perky synth thing. And the sound is coming out of Serum. It's a Zenworld preset. And I may have tweaked the mod wheels over here. Not too sure. But yeah, I haven't really done anything too crazy. Just EQs to, again, cut the highs and tame the sound a bit. So. Yeah, just using EQ to like cut the lows, which is standard. This kickstart for sidechain, and then I'm just cutting out some high frequencies, a bit of the mids as well, just to push the sound back in the mix a bit. Don't want it to be too obvious, but I still want it to be in there and help fill up the empty space. So that's it for the percussion. I think there's also a clap fill. Actually, I'll go over that real quick. So yeah, there's a little clap fill. This is what it sounds like. Literally nothing special. Without the echo, it's just that. And then the echo just helps to carry it through. Yep. And I just use the clap fill during sections where I'm basically transitioning into like a different section of the drop. And yeah, nothing special. Alright, so moving on to the sort of synth side of the track. I'll start with the main melody. I think that's what everyone probably wants to know how I made. I'll quickly just play it so you guys can hear what it sounds like on its own. So yeah, it's a very simple melody. There is a slight progression into it as well on the second half of it. So this is the first half here, and then this is the second half. I will go through all the songwriting aspect of it as well. I'll quickly run through how I made the sound first. So the sound actually came from a Zenworld preset, except I have tweaked this preset pretty heavily, so you're not going to find the same exact sound even if you have the same sound bank, especially with like sounds that are so prominent in your song. You probably don't want to use a preset, especially if you want to sort of stand out from the crowd a little bit. I'd recommend you know taking the time to learn the basics of the synth that you use, and especially with Serum, it's quite easy to use, so it's definitely worth spending the time to learn the synth a bit. But I've definitely changed up the preset a fair bit, hence why I've renamed it as well. So if you guys want to copy it, I guess it's right here for you. I don't really care. Again, it's not about having the sound, it's also about how you can use the sound to write something that is really special. These are the effects, so there's delay, chorus, a little bit of reverb. I think this is the original EQ that the preset had, and I really like the way they've done this EQ. It's pretty cool. So closing that. Now through the actual Ableton effects, I'm just running an EQ8, cutting out the lows, some of the harsh frequencies, some of the resonant frequencies. I think that's the right term. Drum bass, beefing up the sound a bit. Then I'm cutting some lows again, because drum bass tends to introduce some unwanted lows. And then I'm boosting around the mids and highs again here, just to give the sound a bit more clarity. And I'll take out the processing here, and I'll play you the sound, and I'll introduce each thing as we go along. Again, I'm keeping the sidechain because it's just sidechain. And yeah, that's basically it. Honestly, nothing special. It's just about making the right sound and processing it just enough to achieve what you want. You don't want to try and change the sound drastically with processing. At least for melodic elements like this, I find that, less is always more. I'll quickly run through the actual, the notes in this melody as well. So first half of the melody is this, section here. So it just goes from the root note of the song, which is G. The key of this song is G minor, which is what the original Calvin Harris song was also. And I really like the vocals in this song, which is why I wanted to remix it. So I didn't want to, be like, pitch shifting the acapella around and stuff and just changing the whole vibe. I wanted to keep the vibe. So I decided to write something original around the actual key of the song. So yeah, it just goes from the root note, goes to G, A, G, A, and then at the end, it goes to G again, but it's an octave up. And then that just repeats for the first, entire half of the melody. And then the second half, it goes from, instead of G, A, it goes to F, A, F, A, and then that same G is there, F, A, F, A, and then at the end, the G minor scale has a sharp in it. So I wanted to utilize that because I think that sharp notes, or like the black notes, they add some really cool characteristics. So if you can create melodies that incorporate both those kinds of notes, both regular notes and like the sharp notes, I think you can make something really cool and dynamic. That's just my way of thinking, I guess. I'm not very savvy when it comes to musical theory, but I just know enough to stay in key, I guess. So that's it for the main melody. We have a couple of synths that I play on the actual first beat of the drops. So I've got this thing called the sweepy lead. It's playing here. And it's usually playing on its own, as you can see. But I do have another thing called the stepped lead that I like to layer with the sweepy one. So this is what it sounds like. Again, as you can see, there's no processing happening on these ones. They're very simple presets that I have from a techno sound bank. So yeah, I'm not gonna go over those too much. There's also another little melodic element I've got it's called the cool pluck. And it's just this. Yeah, it's very subtle, but I'll play it to you guys here so you can probably hear it better. Yeah, it's literally the same, it's the exact same channel as the main melody that I've duplicated, and I've just played a different pattern, and I just wanted to have something else in there because the first half of the drop just felt empty without that in there. I'll play you guys the drop so you can sort of hear it in context. Yeah, it just keeps things interesting and it helps carry the track, and then when it transitions and then the main melody actually comes in, you get more of an impact because you're so used to like a simple melody like this, and then something cool like this comes in and it kind of gets you off guard, I feel. So yeah, there's that part there. And then I've got a lot of pads in this track as well. I've got the dark pad. I'll play it real quick. It's very subtle, so you can barely hear it. So yeah, as you can see, the dark pad really comes to life during the main breakdown. If you pay attention to the auto filter here, it opens up slowly. Yeah, and then halfway through the main break, it's basically fully opened up. And then as the build up goes, it actually closes back up again, as you can see here. Then we've got something called the tension pad. I'll play you what it sounds like. So yeah, it's quite subtle, but one thing I love doing with techno, I like to use elements like pads and stuff to actually create transitions. So instead of using like a white noise sweep, I'd like to use something like a pad and just automate the cutoff filter, or just get an auto filter and, you know, like close the filter and open it as I want to create more tension. Just using things like pads, it just creates a much more organic transition compared to using a sweep like a white noise riser or like a white noise sweep, which sounds sort of very EDM-y, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'll try to find a place where I can play this in context. You can see. Yeah, as you can see, like that little tension pad is doing a fair bit. It's moving in and out of the mix, and it's, you know, adding constant tension during that section, and it really helps, you know, like get you ready for the drop. And then moving on, we've got this thing called the gritty pad. Not too much automation happening with this one, I believe. I think I cut out the low end as it builds up. Pretty sure. Let me just go back to the gritty pad. Yeah, I'm just cutting out the low end when it's playing during the drops. But the gritty pad adds a lot of atmosphere into the track. I think that's what creates a lot of the depth in the drop as well. Because you can have a really fat kick and bass, but if you don't have other like subtle harmonic elements like pads in the actual song, you're not really gonna get that depth. And it's something that's pretty overlooked in techno production. So moving on to the string, which sounds like this. So as you can see, even the string, it really comes to life, and the filter opens up on the breakdown, and it continues to open up into the build-up. And during the build-up, it's fully opened. And again, I like to use a string to add tension. And yeah, that's basically it. It adds tension, and it just, you know, it's an extra layer of some harmonic aspect to the track, and it just makes it sound more interesting. And it's something, because I used to make a lot of tech house, so it's something I've taken from tech house and I've liked to incorporate into techno. Alright guys, so moving on to the main vocal here. Funny story, so I couldn't find an acapella for the song, so I had to get a friend of mine to help me make a DIY acapella. And, you know, I only wanted to use this section of the vocal anyway, and funnily enough, this is the only section that he could get to, like, you know, sound usable. So yeah, really like glad that it worked out that way, and it's pretty cool having, you know, being the only person that probably has this acapella. But yeah, I'm sure you could probably get something close to this using RX7 or something like that. And you know, as for the effects, honestly, there's nothing going on here. There's a fair bit of EQing, cutting out some resonant frequencies that I didn't want, mainly because these resonance frequencies were coming from the instrumental of the original track. So this is a DIY acapella, so, you know, without you know, since it's not just like a vocal stem, some fragments from the original instrumental are still in there, so we have to sometimes cut things out. So I'll play you what it sounds like without the processing.
Oh, I remember when this world was my own. I'm pretty good at just don't know it. I remember when this world was my own. I'm pretty good at just don't know anymore.
So yeah, as you can see, like once you cut out some of the frequencies that you don't want, the lows, and then you put a little bit of reverb on it. It really helps to smooth out the vocal. It really it sort of muffles the frequencies that you don't want in there, and it's it's more like an illusion, but it makes your ears not really realize that there's these other harmonic things happening in the background. And if it sounds this clean on its own, when you're playing it on top of this entire instrumental, you're not really going to be able to hear it. So I'll play you the whole thing. Yeah, it's really hard to hear it, but I mean, it is there. It's not the best a cappella, but it gets the job done. And yeah, nothing special happening. I was never like really known for like doing crazy vocal chains anyway. And the reason why there's nothing hectic happening here is, one, I don't like over processing things, and two, this has already been ripped off the original song. So this vocal has already been processed a fair bit, in the process of mixing and mastering of the original song. So, me adding more to it is not really going to make it any better. So that's why I just did what I needed to do to make it, make the actual sample usable and to make it fit into my song. There are a few effects that I use with this one. So there's obviously the auto filter at the end here. That's just what I use to bring in the vocal. So during the start of the song here into the first drop, it sort of opens up more and more. So if I go over here, so it starts halfway through the intro, and then it's opening up more and more over here, if you pay attention there. And then I use the echo, and I control the dry and wet, because I only really use the echo over here when I just play this one shot here. So if you pay attention to the echo, it just, the dry wet comes up to 26%, and then it goes down slowly. So I'll play it again for you real quick. And it should go down. Yeah, it's going down pretty slowly. So yeah, that's that one for you. Let's see the automation. Okay, so it doesn't go down, which, I mean, that's not really going to do anything. But yeah, I am using the echo a fair bit on the intro as well. So I'll play for you so you can hear a bit of context. Yeah, so the echo here just helps to carry that the vocal phrase into the next bit. And there is synths and percussion happening behind this, even in the introduction, but it just helps fill out the blank space. So yeah, it just makes the track sound that much fuller. Yeah, and as for the acapella, the vocal, sorry, there's not really much else happening. So I think I'll move on. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I have this little reverse vocal thing, so I'll play you what it sounds like. This is literally just the first whoa phrase of the vocal, so the oh phrase, and then I've just I've taken that and I think I've added more reverb and probably EQ'd some of the high frequencies off it, and then I've basically bounced it into its own separate clip, and I've reversed it, so it kind of creates this little sweeping effect. This is pretty commonly used in all types of dance music. Very common technique, but it helps to introduce the vocal. So I'll play you with the sweep and the vocal. It sounds very sudden there, but I have other shit happening here as well, so. So I'll play you what it sounds like, with and without this thing, and you'll sort of get an idea of what it does. So that's with it, this is without it. Again, it's very subtle. You can make it as loud as you want it to be. I just wanted something a little extra in there to help make that transition into the vocal a bit smoother. It's pretty quiet, but it's definitely there, and I reckon it does help bring the vocal in really nicely. So yeah, that's it for the vocal. I want to quickly go through some of the effects that I've used here. So first of all, in the first drop, you might have noticed this little thing happening. It's like it's a really weird percussion hit thing happening here. So I'll play you this bit. And this is literally just two, I believe these are two one-shot samples that I reversed to make this little reverse sweep. So I've basically layered these two together to make that sound. And wow, there's actually a fair bit of processing happening with these. Didn't even realize that. So I guess I really wanted to change the sound of them. I will, just for the sake of the video, I will take out the processing just so you can hear the difference that the processing does make on it. Because yeah, there's a fair bit happening here. Oops, I'll solo that out. So yeah, that's the original sound. And then I have done a fair bit to this one. Overdrive, there's a bit of chorus in here as well. Yeah, it sounds cool. And then yeah, I think I've just copied the same effects onto this one. There's a slight bit more EQ happening just to make it fit into that one. I think, yeah. But yeah, so you get the general gist of those little sweep things here. And then I've got this thing called delayed metals, which sounds like this without any of the effects. It's a straight up sample. So with the effects, I'm just using effects to give it more space. The delay, the ping pong delay, just helps make it more stereo, so you can hear it on both sides. And yeah, it's funny because I finished most of the song, and I was about to send it off to mastering, and I just felt like halfway through the first half of the first drop, it just sounded kind of empty here. And generally, I like to have my tracks a bit more full. And yeah, I just thought, far out, I need to add something. So yeah, I got lazy and I just dragged in a sample, you know. So it is what it is. But it does make a difference. I'll play everything with and without these effects. Yeah, it definitely helps fill out the gap, because like halfway through there, for me, it feels a bit awkward. It feels like something should happen there, and yeah, it just felt natural to put something there, and I'm glad I put this in there because it's something that isn't too like in your face. It's very subtle, but it's there and it's enough to like carry things forward. In terms of other effects, I've got this riser. It's a very harsh riser. I've EQ'd a fair bit off it. Because otherwise it just sounds too EDM-y and you don't want that in techno. So yeah, it's playing fairly quiet as well. Then I've got this other reverse sweep. Bit of delay on that, bit of EQ. Very similar EQ to one of the sweeps I had over here. So I guess I must have borrowed some processing from some of these elements here. I've also got a snare roll, so I'll quickly go over these. These are playing on the build-ups here. It's literally just a Noizu snare loop. So as you can tell, I used to make a lot of tech house, which is why I still use tech house samples in techno. And you know, the way you process it can really change your sounds. That without the processing is actually quite different. So this is what it sounds like. which is very tech housey. And then if I put the drum bus, reverb, and the filter, it's very it sounds a lot darker. And I think the drum bus plays a big role in this as well, because I'm, shortening up the transients here as well. Yeah, drum bus is what's really doing the magic here. And again, you can't just slap on drum bus and expect it to sound like this. You can copy my settings though. So yeah, it's mainly just shortening up the transients to make the snare a bit darker sounding. And in all the projects, I've made my own snare rolls. They're not that hard to program. I guess I thought that I could make the sample work, so yeah, why not? Yeah, and then the build-up snares are the exact same. Let me see what other effects. Okay, so I've got this Cashmere one-shot here as well. This is what it sounds like. And this plays at the start of the main breakdown, and this is one of those samples or one of those sounds that really make an impact in my opinion. So I'll play you this with and without the sample so you can hear it in context. So, it's still a pretty good transition and the breakdown flows pretty well, but listen to it with this sample on it. It almost distracts you from the main melody that's playing, and it makes you listen to that sound for a few seconds, and then your ears sort of focus in on the main melody. So I like to distract the listener for a bit, and do things like that. And nothing crazy happening with the processing again. See, I'm using 2 EQs here, just because sometimes the 1 EQ doesn't cut everything I want to. It's literally just reverb, echo, and EQ. So it was already a pretty badass sample. It sounds really good. And yeah, just the processing just helps glue it together and fit into my track. So pretty self-explanatory. I've got these clap impacts. The original sample, if I can find it, it sounds like this. That's the OG sample, and I've basically cut sections of it and I've reversed some sections to make these little sweeps. And this is a sample I found from Splice actually. It wouldn't be too hard for you guys to find this yourself, but I literally use this sample in nearly every single song because it's such a clean sample and it's very easy to manipulate and chop it up and, fit it into your songs. And it's just a very natural sounding sweep that I like to use because it doesn't sound too EDM-y and too in your face. It's very clean, and I like to use it for a lot of transitions. Stuff like that, and also here. Yep, so pretty cool. I've also got this other reverse sweep thing. As you can see, I love my reverse sweeps. It just makes your track flow so much smoother. So this literally has no processing at all. There you go, and the sample name is right there, so if you want it, you can go find it. And I think that's it for the track, to be honest. Structure-wise, you can see everything. I've added timestamps here. So when I'm scrolling through, you can see what part of the song I'm in. So I hope that helped. Again, there's so many small details I can go over, but then the video would be like an hour and a half long, which I really don't want it to be. But hopefully this goes through, and it addresses some things that you might have wanted to know about the production of the song. And yeah, again, like there's so many little things happening. There's automations happening on the build up. So I didn't want to cover those because I wanted to make a tutorial that's a bit more intermediate. I don't want to be going over basics. But yeah, just very basic automations happening throughout the track to keep things interesting, keep it flowing. But this is the general gist of what the song is. So yeah, hopefully that helped you guys, figure out how I made the song. And I hope you learned something new. Follow me on Instagram, please. I need more followers, so follow me there.